It is a historical moment in the entire space of AI, where the entire EU government has come together to put an AI policy which will govern every company and every body through that entire policy. And today I'm here to share complete details about this new policy which EU has brought in. It's a pretty detailed and a pretty interesting policy which puts in a lot of different perspectives today which has been unknown or has been violated or put at risk on many citizens like you and I in the world itself. And each and every country or the regions decide to embrace similar or craft their own AI policy which helps and protects many of the citizens like you and I on a day-to-day basis who are interacting with many of the AI applications. So without much further ado, let me get on with it. Let me give you a complete detailed insights into what this policy is all about. The first and the basic thing which they have done a good job of defining what AI is. And this definition has been borrowed and has been taken from OECD's recent updated information about AI. If you want to look it up, here is the information about what OECD defines AI as. The second piece it also defines in the basics is who this AI policy is aligned to. Is it for companies just based in EU, companies based outside of EU but doing business within EU, or other companies? It's in fact applies to each and every organization, including organizations which are based outside of EU as well. The third piece, as per me, when I read through the policy, it has also defined certain exemptions to this policy. The few exemptions are situations around national security, situations around military and defense, R&D, overall research and development, as well as open source. But open source, it's not clearly defined, it's partially defined, so you may want to read. And by the way, whatever I'm going to share is my own read and my own perspective. I'm not a legal lawyer, neither I'm a certified individual from an EU AI body, which is they're certifying or sharing what the EU AI policy is all about. What I'm here today as a person who's deeply entrenched into this domain, inferring from that AI policy what I understood and what I'm here to share with most of you. And hopefully it helps you to get a glimpse of what the AI policy is all about, and you can do your own double click and triple click as you read through the policy, and hopefully this video is helpful for you. Now, the big piece which has been helpful for many companies and other bodies, what's the timeline to implement this policy? The EU government has given a grace period from 6 months to 24 months for all companies to comply and align to the new AI policy. Now, as per the policy, they have defined that there are different types of AI, and they have done a very interesting and good job of what those AI types are. And they have categorized these AI into different buckets. So the first one, they completely call it as a prohibited AI. The second is high risk AI. The third is limited risk AI. Fourth is minimal risk AI. And each of these, I will go into detail and explain and give you examples of what each of the types of AI applications would come and fall into each of these categories. They have clearly called out extensive requirements for providers and high-end users of high-risk AI. So if you have any services or your product or your platform offers those services which are built on AI, then you really have a stringent policy which you need to adopt and align to. And last but not the least, all the buzzword about generative AI, EU has done a good job of bringing in that into the fold as well, as it has looked at the overall AI policy and has ensured that any generative AI propositions need to have specific transparency and disclosure requirements. So let's deep dive into each of these categories of high risk, prohibited AI, limited and minimal risk, and what are the examples in there. So the first one is the prohibited AI. In prohibited AI, they have looked at various applications of AI and they have categorized and give examples what those prohibited AI applications are. The first piece is social credit scoring systems. So any systems or any organizations who have built AI applications using and driving social credits, that's completely prohibited. The second is emotion recognition systems at work and in education. The third is AI used to exploit general people's vulnerabilities. For example, age, disability, race, and many more. The fourth one is around applications of AI within where you're trying to drive behavioral changes or use and circumvent free will, which is definitely prohibited. The fifth area in prohibited AI is all about untargeted scraping of digital images for facial recognition. The sixth area, biometric categorization systems using sensitive characteristics. The seventh area is specific predictive policing application. And last but not the least, the law enforcement use of real-time biometric identification in public. Apart from that, they have made an exception if there is a national security or if there is a specially approved systems which has been allowed to capture real-time biometric identification. So these are the areas in prohibited AI which becomes a very interesting, and I'm sure many of the platforms which are using any of these applications of AI would be limited or would not be allowed to use any of them in EU specifically. The second broad category is the high-risk AI. Now within that, they have defined certain types of applications or areas which categorizes the high-risk AI. The first one is medical devices, second is vehicles, third is recruitment, HR and worker management, fourth is education and vocational training, fifth is influencing elections and voters, sixth is accessories to services, for example, insurance, banking, credit, benefits, etc. The other piece aligned to this is critical infrastructure management, for example, water, gas, electricity, or basic utilities, emotion recognition systems, biometric identification, law enforcement, border control, migration, and asylum. Now, if you see that there is some of these also feature in the prohibited AI, but in prohibited AI, they have done a good job of actually specifying and getting into the details. But in high-risk area, it's much more broader than the specific examples. The other ones is, which is there within high-risk AI, is the administration of justice. And last but not the least is the specific products or any companies which are aligned to safety products. Now, this is a much more broader category, but think about human safety and general population safety. So these are the broad areas or applications of AI which come under the high-risk AI. So the key piece which they have done a good job is that they have defined that there are certain key requirements for high-risk AI. So the first piece, you as a technology provider, you as an individual who's using AI have to go through a process which is an assessment which basically focuses around the fundamental rights impact assessment and conformity assessment. So that's the first piece. The second piece is registration in public EU database of high-risk AI systems. The third is implement risk management and quality management system. The fourth area is around data governance, which is ensuring, for example, you're taking care of bias, you're taking care of you're mitigating any bias risk in your data, you are ensuring your data is representative of the training data. The fifth area is around how do you build in transparency, like for example, instructions for use, technical documentation, etc. The next piece is human oversight. So how are you going to build a human in the loop infrastructure within the high-risk AI applications? And last but not the least is how do you confirm and enable accuracy, robustness, and cybersecurity in your entire value chain, including testing and monitoring. So these are few key requirements for high-risk AI, and you as a provider or as an individual who's working within the AI space is required to conform to high-risk AI policies. Now, when you think about general purpose, like if you look at the prohibited AI and the high-risk AI, then there is general purpose, which is around the limited use and minimal risk AI. That's how they have clarified. So when it comes to general purpose AI, they have defined certain requirements. So the first piece which you have to look at when you are developing any solution around a general purpose AI solution, which is also GPAI, you have to define your requirements and distinct requirements, what these GPAI and the foundation models are going to focus on. You have to create a transparent communication ecosystem, which is around technical documentation, training data summaries, copyrights, and also IP safeguards. The additional requirements also include the high impact and system risk models. For example, and if you believe as a provider that you have a system or you have a technology which is built, which is going to be high impact and with certain systematic risk, you will have to focus on doing proper model evaluation, risk assessments, adversarial testing, and last but not the least is incident reporting. And specifically when it comes to generative AI, it requires that any individual who is using or developing generative AI propositions need to ensure that they are telling their consumers or the customers who are going to interact with the generative AI models, the information which the chatbot throws needs to be labeled and detectable that it is generated using a generative AI proposition. And also, if there is any piece which you build which is a deepfake, then you need to label that as deepfake, as an example. So these are the requirements for general purpose AI proposition. And yes, it's a lot, but definitely a step in the right direction. Now, what happens if you don't follow it? What happens if you come in the picture and you have gaps in your deployments in AI? So it's pretty stern, some of the actions which have been highlighted. So the first piece, which is pretty critical for corporates, is that there can be a penalty of up to 7% of global annual turnover or 35 million euros for prohibited AI violations. The second piece, for most other violations, they have defined that it's going to be around 3% of global annual turnover or 15 million euros. For any place where you have supplied incorrect information, it's going to be about 1.5% of global turnover or 7.5 million euros. So these are the three specific monetary based penalties which have been levied. But there are few things which they have also further clarified. There's going to be a cap on fines for small and medium enterprises as well as for startups. So these are the fines limitations. But in addition to that, to ensure that they are able to enforce this law, the EU government has now set up a European AI office and an AI board, which has been established centrally at the EU level, not at individual country level. There have been market surveillance authorities which have been set up in EU to ensure that they are able to enforce the act. And last but not the least, like GDPR, any individual can make a complaint about non-compliance about any company. Now, this is a huge step and a significant step when it comes to responsible AI. And I can tell you, I'm pretty excited, motivated, as well as worried for all companies within the AI space, because it poses a bigger challenge for them to now start implementing. There are many companies who are still grappling with the GDPR norms and policies. Now with the new AI policies, they're going to have a fun in the next 6 to 24 months. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you to understand what the new EU AI Act policy is all about. And if you have any further questions, comments, thoughts, or different perspectives, or if I have inferred the policy incorrectly, I would welcome your thoughts and comments in the comment section below.